Hey guys, welcome to Ash Echoes. In today's video, we're going to be doing a beginner's guide for the game, going through the core basics for the game. Now, I know a lot of people who watch my channel have obviously played a lot of gacha games. This one does have a few things that separate it in the core functions from some other gacha games. So what I want to do in this video is go through more the basic core systems so that you understand when you jump into the game what's happening with things like character progression, different game modes, and all that sort of stuff so that you can be pointed in the right direction. And then we will do more guides, probably lots of them in the first few days, going through different aspects of the game. So let's get into it. And just quickly, so you guys don't feel like you're behind, this is being recorded over on the Content Creator Pioneers server, so that's why we are where we are on this game. Also, if you are a creator and you want to join, you can apply through their website to get into the program as well. Okay, so the first thing I want to go into is the Echomancer menu. These are all your characters that you have to play with, because like I mentioned, some things are a little bit different than in other games. Now, the first thing you may notice is there are no levels for these characters. The characters do not have levels, so you're not going to level them up like in other games. Instead, they have a couple core progression methods. Now, my head at the moment is just kind of blocking it. If I show you, we've got the Ascension over there. So with Ascension, this is where you're going to basically go ahead, and this is like the next level of limit break for the character, which is going to increase their stats. Now, being able to do this, as you can see, it requires Officer level 23. So to upgrade your characters in these core progression systems is going to take you leveling up your actual account yourself. So that is the main thing. Your character's progressions is tied to your main account progression in levels, not in terms of some other games where you can only level them up to the level of your account. It's just that you need to reach certain breakpoints to be able to limit break your characters. Now, the other thing that we do have is combat skills. Now, every character is going to have at least one active skill, being like the seed skill, which is going to be a ultimate ability. And then we've got two others, which can be actives or passive skills, depending on the character. If you look here, this one is an auto skill, meaning it's like a passively activated thing. And just keep that in mind. But with upgrading them, we can once again upgrade these. It is going to depend once again on your account level, on how far you can go. And then you can go ahead and upgrade these. These are very, very simple to upgrade. The game is very intuitive. If you need some materials, you just hit obtain. It shows you where to get it. You can go to it if you've already cleared it once. You can do quick battle and you can sweep. There is infinite sweeps, so it's absolutely fantastic. The only time you can't sweep is for your first clear of anything. So very intuitive with anything you're trying to do with upgrading your character to go ahead and get those upgrades. But once again, those are the first two base upgrade systems, which is your Ascension and then your combat skills. Now, as we move on past that, seeds is going to be our duplicates. Now, as you get duplicates for characters, there's going to be two key levels to unlock. That is the first duplicate, because we do get a whole new trait, and the third duplicate does give us an advanced trait as well. Now, you don't need these for a lot of characters, but just know if you are looking at dupes, those are the two key ones, whereas these ones are 2, 4, and 5. You can see they're just giving you an extra upgrade to your skills. They're not giving you new mechanics per se. So 1 and 3 are going to be the the ones that kind of change characters, and the rest are going to be just basic upgrade abilities. Now, the leader record, I'm going to go into this in a little bit. This has to do with our engravings, so I'm not going to dump in there too far at the moment. Archives, once again, this is more bond-related stuff that isn't too overly important, and we do have fitness training where we can get upgraded stats, but the main core progression for your characters is going to be that Ascension level, along with upgrading their skills, and then if you do have the seed upgrades, that's going to be the one. But for most free-to-play players who don't have many dupes, it's literally just your Ascension and then also your combat skills are going to be your two main ways to upgrade your characters. But then we do have other ways to gain bonus stats in combat, which we'll go through now. So the other things in the game is you may look at it and go, but you haven't mentioned anything about gear. So gearing in this game is a little bit different. We have two sort of quote-unquote gearing systems. We have memory traces being the first one, and the other one we have is the tactical engravings. Now, this is very, very different to what I've seen in other games. It actually took me a little while to get used to inside this game. So essentially with the memory traces, you're going to get these along the way, and these aren't something you sort of equip to your character. It ties into one of the core game modes, which is the Nexus. Now, the Nexus is a game mode. It's kind of like a roguelite where you go as deep as you can and you get different ratings, and as you go deeper and get better ratings in the Nexus, that is going to give you your tactical engraving. But when you go into the Nexus, if we go here and we go into it, okay, let's just confirm one. Let's go in. But when you go in, you get to choose which character you want to go in with. So let's say someone I haven't done a run with because I got him is Luke. Okay, so now this is where we're going to put our memory traces on. So the traces equip to them when they're going into the Nexus. And it's going to be important because you're going to get these in the Nexus and it's going to contribute to some stats that they can get on their engraving. So you can always just go balanced here and apply. In the early game, I highly recommend just going auto equips and stuff like that for this sort of stuff until you get more deep into it, into the understanding. I don't want to overwhelm you guys, so doing it balanced is perfectly fine because as you progress fast in the early game, you're going to override and get better engravings anyway. But essentially, this is what your traces do. You equip them when you go into the Nexus. And then once you clear an entire Nexus run, which I'm not going to run through a whole thing because it just takes too long, just note there is a full auto mode once you've done like 3 clears of it, so it does become a lot easier. But once you've cleared through it, these are going to determine some of the skills that you get to have on your tactical engravings. So if we jump in here, you can see all these skills I got. This was the run in the Nexus that I did, and these were the traces that I used up the top. So you can see the traces I used, and they're going to help determine what stats that I get and what skills that I get. Now with these engravings, even though every character can have multiple engravings, you can see this one's A21 and this one's B19. The thing with these is when you choose a character as the leader in combat, it is their tactical engraving that is going to be applied to your entire team to get stats. So if we jump over here and we jump into, let's just go into the world and let's just jump into some combat quickly so I can show you guys. Oh, this one's a cutscene rip. Let's go into a combat scenario so I can show you guys. So as you can see here, she is my leader and her engraving is that 3887. It's the A21 and you can see the stat bonuses that she's going to give. Now it does say better engravings available, so I can go ahead and choose someone else. I can go like this and I can make him the leader and then I can go ahead and use his engravings. Now the thing with this is you're going to get different skills through those engravings depending on what traces you took into the Nexus and what abilities you ended up unlocking through the roguelike. And that is the cool thing about this one. There is no gear sets. And that is the only thing that matters. Just note, even though you may have tactical engravings on all of these other characters, it's only the leader that actually counts for the tactical engraving. Now, there is one other tactical engraving that does count, and that is going to be your, I forget what to call it, but your main character, who isn't really a combat character as such. It is just basically you and your account represented. So with that, if we go back over here, if we go back home, and we go to our memory traces, if we go back to our engravings, my bad, and we go back here to our director, that's what it's called, and we click on him. Now his engraving, you can see, is at B16. Now his engraving is actually determined by the traces you equip to him. Just note, if you have traces equipped to him to get those extra stats, you can still use those traces on absolutely anyone when you go into the Nexus. So it's not a traditional gearing system, it's more of a equip system for the roguelike, and then you equip them to your character going into the roguelike. It gives you the engraving, which you could kind of look at like maybe like a weapon or a piece of gear, which then only the leader brings into combat. And that is the way it works. Now, I know it's a little bit complicated. As you play it a bit more, it will make more sense. But the one place where your traces are always applied is going to be to your director, which is sort of like your MC of the game. Just note that the director is going to have one of each type. You got the attack, defense, the mastery, vitality, and so on. And so you will want to sort of level them evenly over the early game, just so you can get some better stats out of your director. But just note that you don't have to have that spread on your characters when you do take them into the Nexus. So hopefully that makes sense. We might do some deeper dive videos into traces and engravings, but hopefully that gets you through the basics. Because like I said, that was something that when I first jumped in the game, it took me a fair while to understand the exact principles of it. But just note, when you go into combat, the things that really count are the traces equipped to your director, because that gives his engraving level, and then the engraving of the leader of your team based on the traces that they brought into the Nexus and how deep they got into the Nexus, which is a roguelike mode. That's pretty much the summary of characters and progression and power. Next, I want to jump into the different game modes that we have. Now, the first one, if we go down over here into Worlds, this is going to be your general story progression. As you unlock this, you can just keep progressing through it. It's pretty self-explanatory. The other area we're going to go to is Field Ops. This pretty much houses the main rest of the content, except for, once again, the Nexus, which I did touch on. But this area here, you can see down the bottom, we have all these different things. These are all your resource grinds. Once again, you don't really have to come here to find them. When you're upgrading doing anything. You just go need to obtain, you go here, and this is where you're going to burn your general stamina. Just note you do get a fair few items to generate stamina along the way, but this is going to be that main place where you are burning that when you need to upgrade characters and so on and so forth. Now up the top here we have more what I consider to be sort of the end game-ish modes, if you want to call them that. First one is the Nexus Memory. This is kind of like a hard mode version of the Nexus with, you know, challenges to get extra rewards and stuff. Just go in, clear the stages, you get rewards is the basic gist. I'm not going to go too deep into that. The next one is over here with Joint Training. This is a weekly reset. This is a very interesting mode. So essentially what we have here is we have a bunch of different nodes. You can see I haven't jumped into these ones yet, but we have different nodes. And basically in each node, they have 3 subnodes. Now, when you go into a subnode, whatever your leader is, they get locked in as the leader to that node. And as you can see, this is where you're going to have to build more characters, because when I go over here and I go to say battle this node and I try and select a leader, you can see he is already in use and the others are of the wrong class. So unfortunately I have to build more characters before I can progress through and do the rest of this and complete it. Now you can see we're at 60%. That's because I haven't gone into the high risk section to get higher. But essentially what it does is as you complete these bottom nodes, it upgrades the final boss. And so you can see the final boss here, we can get different rewards from it based on how far we go on the percentage over on the right hand side here, and that percentage increases the difficulty of the boss. And to increase this percentage, it's an addition of all the percentages you have over here. So as you can see, we've got 60 and we've got 60, so our percentage goes up to 120. Now if we could scroll, I don't think we can, but it will end up being at a 400%. Because we do have the 3 different nodes that we can get to 100%. So just know that that one there is going to be a weekly reset. So push it as hard as you can when you get in there. As you can see, I'm not too stressed on this build at the moment, but just note you can upgrade this and the boss does get pretty difficult, even at like 120% for me here. So that is that one. And the final one that I'm going to mention is the Sky Rift. So this one is basically different faction towers. Now, unfortunately here, we do have requirements. So there will be date requirements and other requirements to unlock the higher difficulties of these, but essentially these are 6 floors that you grind through. You can see they have different requirements for different classes. On each one you've got to use those classes. They also have different buffs along the way. You can see up here, so you're going to have different buffs, different modifiers. You can see this one, enemies on the water element, yada yada yada, and it's going to have different stuff that you can play around with. Now once you clear them to level 6, you will get another hard mode, a deep observation I believe they call it, which you can also compete in, which does have general resets as well. Once again, that's a bit later on. You will get into it, and just note it is another form of currency income that you can come back to along the way, and those are going to be the main game modes. As I mentioned previously, the Nexus is another core game mode. In general, I'm not going to this isn't going to be a Nexus deep dive because that's a whole topic in itself, but in general I like going in the whatever the most recent, basically the furthest right Nexus. Just note you can go back to the other ones because you do get some premium currency for going deeper into them, but I normally go for the most recent one, which is going to be on the right. And then once again, for the early game, I think just coming in here, selecting whichever character you need to get an engraving on, clicking balanced and applying is going to be the safest bet for most players. I will do more guides and stuff on this in the future, but I think just for like a day one player, don't sweat it too hard, just get in there, and that is the basic gist. This is where you're going to get those engravings to get the extra stats on your leader, which is going to benefit your whole team in every other aspect of the game. Just note, the Nexus is a very, very important part of the game, and we will cover it much deeper later on. Now I want to jump on to some other miscellaneous stuff. If we jump over here, just next to Worlds, we can see we've got our missions. This is where we're going to have our daily missions, we're going to have our weekly missions, phase quests, and field ops guide. This is how you can get extra rewards here. Phase quests are very important. These are the kind of thing that you really want to follow along the way in the early game of your gameplay. As you can see, once we finish phase 6, we do get a random 6-star contract. So keep in mind, as we're about to get into summons, you do get 2 selectors along the way. Just note, if you don't want to run into dupes, it might be worth waiting to get this. However, it will take you a little bit to go ahead and complete phase 6 of this one, but just note you do get a random Echomancer from this. And if we jump over here into Spirit Dive, this is going to be our summons. Now you can see if I hide my head once again, if we get rid of me, I'm on 300 of 300, so I can get a selector. That allows me to get any Echomancer that I want from the standard and just basically select them. If I click it, I don't think it's going to bone me. You can see here, we can go ahead, it shows you who you've obtained, and you can go ahead and grab one. Now, I'm not doing that yet because once again, I want to get that random one first. Just note you do get another selector at 30 summons and the same thing does apply. You can take it straight away or you can hold out, struggle along a little bit longer, clear that phase 6, get your random one so that you guarantee you don't get a dupe, and that is up to you. Now, moving on past that with summons, you can see we have two different types of banners. We have the targeted banners up here for both characters and memory traces. Now, just note characters and traces use different currencies as well. So you're not going to be sharing between those, but the targeted banner and the standard banner do use the same of the currency. So if you're doing Echomancer and Echomancer, it's the same currency. If you're doing Memory Trace and Memory Trace, it is the same currency. Just note that the targeted ones, which are the red ones, these are going to be like first time appearance banners when the character first comes into the game. The standard one, you will have standard rate ups, as you can see with this one with Laurel, but these are going to be rate ups for characters that are already in the game and it's not their first appearance. In general, you kind of want to save for the rate up characters because they're going to be the ones you want to target. However, in the early game, if you're a brand new player, Laurel is a great character. So if you're just urging to dump some summons, maybe you've already picked up you've already picked up the rate up, you've got some more summons, you don't have a great roster. This one is a decent one to go for. I would avoid the standard banner. Once again, you are going to get a free random 6-star and you're going to get 2 6-star selectors from these characters, so I wouldn't go in. But the general idea is save for the brand new characters as they come. But once again, if you're brand new and you just want to dump some summons, this one ain't too bad because Laurel is actually a really good character too. The next thing I want to cover briefly is going to be the Seed Dome. So if you go to the menu across here and we go into the Seed Dome, this is going to be one of your, deployment type areas. We can deploy over here for some training. We can deploy over here for some basic resources and R&D. And then we've got the Central Command Center as well. This is going to be one of those things you just want to come back to. Make sure you've got something filled in everywhere so that you're progressing, because some of your missions will rely upon this. And I didn't realize this at the very start of the game. So it's a good one to jump into and just have something filled up all the time, because some of these missions you do require you to have completion in there. You can see 3 Echomancers reach fitness training at level 3 in any stage, so this is all tied into that area, so you do want to go in there early on. Just note it is there. It's one of those things I never pay too much attention to in games because I don't enjoy those types of systems, but it is a mandatory one. You will have to do it, so just note it is there and it is something that you will have to pay attention to. And that pretty much covers everything that I wanted to go through in this beginner's guide. Like I said, I just wanted to get you guys to understand all the core systems in the game. There are a bunch of other things like the chat more, which is like your messaging system. Once again, that's a feature I don't really normally interact with too much. But you got your Meowsters, which is your shop, all those general things, but we will go more into the advanced stuff in future videos. Hopefully that gets you understanding the core mechanics of the game modes and the characters themselves, because like I said, compared to a lot of other gacha games, it does operate a bit differently on how you upgrade your characters, gearing systems and stuff like that. So hopefully this gives you a good base understanding for when you jump into the game. But that is going to be it for this one, guys. As always, thanks for watching. Hope you have an awesome day, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Cheers.